And welcome to Have I Got News For You? And before you turn over to watch Julia Somerville on News at 10, let me assure you that she does feature on this show as well. Elsewhere in the news this week, after a pilot falls ill with food poisoning, the only passenger not to have had the meal steps forward to take over the controls. Commuters react as the 6:45 to East Croydon leaves Victoria on time. And in Westminster, a man whose days must surely be numbered as the tide of public opinion begins to turn meets the Prime Minister. Speaking of which, on Ian Hislop's team, a man who, in his capacity as head of arts programmes, has made London Weekend's cultural output what it is today, 1 hour a week. Melvin Bragg. And with Paul Merton tonight, a man who was one of the ultimate victims of Thatcher's Britain, a male impressionist, Mike Yarwood. So once more into the breach that is round one, Ian and Melvin, chapter 94 of the never-ending saga for you.
Ah, right, Freddie Mercury competition. He wins again. Peter Lilly. Kenneth Baker.
Is it the A1 Tech, the follow-up to the Matrix Churchill, where the government set up a lot of British businessmen and then dumped on them? Many of you will know the feeling. And
They were gagging orders, what he was signing. Both him and Peter Lilly were signing these bits of paper that stop information going before a court that might let you off. And these four blokes sold, well, deodorants, they said they were, to Iraq, but they were arms. And the government was fully aware of this and said, yeah, go on, sell them. And then Customs said, are these blokes selling arms to Iraq? We better arrest them. The government said, I've no idea. It was the government, as usual, trying to get people in jail so they can let them out later.
Is this a current affairs programme?
It is, in theory, yes.
I thought it was a sort of a light entertainment show.
Yeah. Well, we do our best, you know.
This government is light entertainment, for God's sake.
You wouldn't be Labour lovies by any chance, would you?
Labour lovies?
Oh, well, it's just a shot in the dark.
How dare you call me Labour?
love is...
How was your meeting with the Prime Minister?
brief.
OK. Yes, it is the case of businessman Paul Grecian, who's the person involved, who was encouraged by the government to sell arms to Iraq and to spy for MI6. That is until he was arrested for selling arms to Iraq. Paul Grecian was given the codename Raven by his spy masters, obviously in the prior knowledge that he was never going to leave the Tower of London. Paul and Mike?
This is the headless pig they're breeding. The sausage that doesn't answer back. Oh,
Is that Lord Nolan?
Lord Nolan. Edward Heath.
Edward Heath.
Is it Norm?
Go away. You know, the MPs have to declare everything they earn and all that kind of thing, and it was the Labour won the vote by something like 53 votes.
I think it's a lot of fuss. I mean, you know, if MPs want to earn a bob or two outside if it's legal, what the heck, you know? I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you, if I'd been offered a fee to appear on this show, I would have taken it.
And why did we see Ted Heath there?
Well, why not? He's a nice man.
Ted Heath was the senior man protesting against these.
That's right.
It was an amazing argument to the Commons. The argument was that Tory MPs have to have these extremely well-paid outside jobs, or they have no connection with the real world. And it's funny they don't get jobs as hospital porters.
Let's get the Tories, isn't it, tonight? And that's another thing. It's always Tory now. They never get their full title, Conservative. Tory.
The full title is Crook. Do we sense you're a bit upset about this, Mike?
I do think things have been a bit lopsided recently, frankly.
And you're here to set things straight.
Not really. I just talked myself out of even less work than I'm getting already.
No, it's time for a right-wing comedian. Cabinet's nearly empty.
Ian and Melvin, smile, please.
It's Julia Somerville.
Yes, Julia Somerville.
It's Boots' new service.
Yeah.
You take your film in, and they put your picture on the front of the Sun.
Except Boots fought back quickly and said that that man with his head covered with Sheldon worked for Kodak. And people seem to think the blame is really at the police station, where some policeman, May just have phoned up a newspaper and said, we've got Julia Somerville here, and her partner is accused of taking these many photographs of this child. It's disgraceful that it's got public, and people won't go to Boots, Kodak or police stations ever again. We'll have...
Isn't Julia Somerville the person that Ian looks like? Supposed to look like?
Jimmy.
Oh, it's
Although now you say it.
When pushed on whether a policeman had leaked the story, Scotland Yard said, none of our officers are responsible. I think you knew that already, didn't you? Julia Somerville's employers, ITN, said it's totally ridiculous to suggest that anyone who took pornographic photos would have them developed at Boots. They should get a much quicker service at Snappy Snaps. According to child psychologist Ray Wire, even as adults we get uncomfortable when our elderly parents bring out snaps of us naked lying on rugs, especially if they were taken last New Year's Eve. Paul and Mike, what's all this then?
Yes, this is... I know this. This is Northampton. They've decided that the police are going to sort of chase... because it'd be cheaper to chase villains on bus. They get on the bus, so some bank robbers are getting away, and they'll follow them in the bus. And after a while, the bank robbers will say, well, there's no point in having a getaway car. Let's just go down a road that doesn't have a bus route. And the police will be going, oh, they've just turned left past the post office. Like, we'll get off at the next stop.
Where's it happening?
Northampton.
Is correct. I'm going to have to give you all the points. A spokesman admitted that it could lengthen the response time to a police call-out. When they do come now, 3 or 4 will come at once. Which daylight robbery brings us bang to rights at the end of round 1, and the situation is that neither side has stolen any kind of march, both sitting pretty on 4. Well, later in the programme, the teams can look forward to being forced on pain of death to compose some amusing captions to this. Something to be getting on with in moments of heightened tedium. Well, it's time now for a special, never-to-be-repeated one-off round, that's unless it works, which we've called our Impersonation Challenge. This features our high-tech impressionometer, which will, there it is, randomly select a series of celebrities, and every time it does, both teams have to nominate one person to do an impression of that celebrity. And points for whichever one is the better will then be in my gift. Obviously, with a top professional impressionist on the panel in the shape of Ian Hislop. It's going to be pretty one-sided. Nevertheless, let's waste no more time and roll the impressionometer. Impressive, huh? And who'd have thought? Harold Wilson. Paul, who are you nominating to...
I'll do this one. We need the points.
Yes. It's a controversial decision. Ian, who's going to do yours?
Melvin.
Paul, let's
They can be quite short, can't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Well, I think, as I said at the Brighton Conference in 1968...
I didn't know Harold Wilson was Welsh.
No, it was positively... no, that was very good, very good.
Yes, it's just a shame that he chose himself, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not you. Ian, let's hear yours.
Well, it's hell up here in heaven, really. But I'm going to modernise it with the YCT technology. It'll take a long time. It'll take me a very long time, but then I've got a very long time.
It was Harold Wilson. Well, the points very obviously have to go to Paul and Mike's team. So to our second chillingly accurate impersonation, for which we roll the impressionometer.
Why do I feel my career has ended?
And astonishingly, it's another voice from yesteryear, Eddie Waring, the late, great rugby league commentator. Paul, who are you going to nominate this time?
Mr. Yarwood, I'm sure.
Well, you see now, we used to commentate on the rugby up in Isle of Park, Hunslet and all. And I'll tell you...
Ian, what about your team?
I'm nominating Melvin again.
Just do the same as you did last time.
Can you just give us a hint? Because obviously we have to give the points to Melvin. Let's now see who's thrown up this time as we roll the impressionometer. Incredibly, the random selection is 70s heartthrob Melvin Bragg. So, Paul, who are you going to nominate?
He's going to have it.
I'll have a go at it.
All right, so it's Paul Merton. Ian?
During the days when he sounded like Howard Wilson.
Who are you going to choose, Ian?
I'm going to nominate Melvin.
Paul?
I can't do it at all.
Neither can Melvin.
No. On the South Bank show this evening... I can do George Harrison.
OK, do George Harrison instead.
Well, the thing about the Beatles was... the reason why we were called the Beatles, because that was the name we thought of at the time.
That's Lily Savage.
There was more than one person who comes from Liverpool. I can do a very good Alec Guinness.
You're the Liverpool constituency.
Yes, how does it go?
Alec Guinness, in Kind Hearts and Coronets as the old priest, when Dennis Price is walking around, and there's the old priest showing him around the church, and he says,
The view from my west window has all the exuberance of Chaucer and none of the concomitant crudities of the period.
I can do Julian.
Thank you.
Julian Clary.
Yes, I'm sure you can. Thank you. Melvin, would you like to try Melvin Bragg?
Yeah, it goes something like this.
That's fine, thank you.
No.
It's not easy to do yourself. That's very good.
Unless you're very lonely.
I've told you.
I'm going to give the marks to Melvin for impersonating himself. Right, for the final time, then, let's roll that impressionometer. And yes, out of all those it could have chosen, it's the familiar face of popstar Jimmy Somerville. Paul, who are you nominating to impersonate Jimmy Somerville?
Do you know who Jimmy Somerville is?
Well, he's a pop singer.
Yeah,
I'm not
do it.
you know.
Now?
Yeah, go on then.
Well, I first joined the Communards in 1968.
That's Eddie Waring, isn't it? Ian. Don't leave me this way. I can't survive. Thank you.
Can't imagine doing question time again.
A faultless impersonation until you started singing. Well, you can have the points. Jimmy Somerville was in Geneva last week, where he was so appalled by the sight of 12 lobsters living in a tank at a seafood restaurant that he bought the lot for £1,000 and, in spite of the waiters' protestations, released them all into the lake. Unfortunately, because they're sea creatures, Lake Geneva is a freshwater lake, they all died instantly. which impressionable nonsense brings this round to an end. And, well, a short march now does seem to have been stolen, with Paul and Mike on 5, and Ian and Melvin just ahead on 7. Almost over-familiar odd one out round now follows. 4 memorable James Bonds. Which one's the George Lazenby? Paul, your 4 towering intellects are Harold Pinter, Eric Bristow, Michael Caine and Brandon Lee.
Well, Michael Caine, Howard Pinto and Eric Bristow all in a band called Fister, which they started in the early 60s. They made a record called Losing the Light, which was on the Bowman Records label, I think. And I think Brandon Lee's the odd one out because the other 3 all formed this band when at the same school together.
The drugs that Paul is on tonight
are available. Any chemist if you get the combination right.
It's not actually the right answer, I have to...
What, the Brandon Lee is the odd one out?
Brandon Lee is the odd one out.
Yes, and the other 3 went to the same school, which is Hackney Downs, which is just going to close on the beginning of the new year.
Bugger. The answer...
Was that an invite, or just...
Couldn't manage him and his wife. The answer is...
Oh, I didn't hear that. What did you say?
I'll just give you the answer, Paul. The odd one out is Brandon Lee, whose real name is Brian McKinnon, who, at the age of 32, re-entered his old school, Bears Den, as a pupil and studied there for 12 months before being found out. In fact, he only gave his age away when he asked the teacher where the new textbooks were. Michael Caine attended Hackney Downs, and his first ever words on stage were in a school nativity play, My Name's Virgin Mary.
Oh, hang on. Was that nearly an
dangerously
impression?
close. It was
no, not dangerously close. Dangerously far away. Yeah. Very good. Then everybody else has had to do it.
What's that then?
Michael Caine.
I've just done him.
No, you haven't. You've done a vague approximation of some sort of Cockney accent you might have heard on a bus somewhere when you didn't have any money. But let's have Michael Caine.
Right. My name's Michael Caine.
Might be more impressive if the floor manager didn't have to start the applause in the morning.
Mike. Chris Eubank. Lord Stirling. Diane Abbott, MP, and Colin the Pigeon.
Chris Eubank's just retired from boxing. Diane Abbott hasn't. He might have... I don't know. As Bob Monkhouse would say, I really am.
This is our Diane Abbott. She's the only one who hasn't had a shit in Trafalgar Square.
Diane Abbott is the only woman. Now, that might not be the right answer, but it is a correct answer, isn't it?
Well, Colin's the only pigeon.
Lord Stirling's in, Lord.
Unfortunately,
Well, Lord Stirling was in the news recently because he was caught on a train not having paid for his ticket. Chairman of P&O, it's quite entertaining. And he said, I couldn't buy a ticket because there were all these people at the ticket windows sort of buying tickets and I couldn't wait. I'm Lord Stirling. So he got on the train and the ticket collector came and said, where's your ticket? And he said, I haven't got one. And the bloke said, all right, you can pay the ticket and the fine. And Lord Stirling said, I'll give you the money, whatever it is. I have some change. But I won't pay the fine. And he, the ticket collector, obviously, I'm putting this politely, said, yes, you will, mate. And Lord Stirling went through the normal procedures of ringing up this ticket collector's boss and saying, I'm Lord Stirling, drop this. And the boss went, yes, of course, sir.
I'll give you one for that. The answer is that they've all been caught on trains without a valid ticket, except Colin the Pigeon, who, being a pigeon, tends to go unchallenged. In fact, the New Scientist magazine reported recently that some pigeons have actually learnt how to travel up and down the London Underground system inside tube trains, although some of them are still having trouble with the Northern Line splitting in two at Kennington. When Chris Eubank was found without the right ticket, police warned him that he didn't have to say anything, but anything he did say was likely to be pretentious twaddle. Melvin, your creative quartet are Elton John, Rachel Whiteread, Christo, and Christo.
Rachel Whiteread did a sculpture of a house, a house-sized house, in the East End of London, inside out, which was highly acclaimed by people, was a source of pride to a lot of people in the area, and of course was knocked down by the council. The Christos wrap houses up in various materials to conceal them.
They're performance artists, except Elton.
I'll give you 1 point. The answer is that they've all been involved in wrapping up buildings, apart from artist Rachel Whiteread, who filled a terraced house in Mile End with liquid concrete, an act that won widespread praise from the art world, but severe criticism from the Higson family, who were inside watching Coronation Street at the time. Elton John once wrapped music venue Hammersmith Odeon in pink and green striped paper with a red ribbon and gift tag that read "Merry Christmas, love from Elton." A wasted effort, as unfortunately that year his wife Renata had actually wanted a Garfield pyjama case. And finally in this round, Ian, Agatha Christie, Mystic Meg, Alistair Campbell and Melvin Bragg.
Only one of them's a novelist. Mystic Meg comes up with predictions for the lottery, but not the numbers, does she?
No, I think that would make it too easy for people.
Right.
I'm guessing, but yeah.
Alistair Campbell is Blair's assistant.
Is it to do with anything to do with plots?
Campbell hit a bloke in the Commons once. He hit a journalist from The
painful.
Guardian who made a Maxwell joke on the night he died. Michael White said he was doing an impression, and he said, "You should have seen him, it was Bob, 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 Bob." This is true, and Campbell was working at the Mirror, so Campbell went and hit him. Out of loyalty.
Naturally.
He's a loyal guy.
Of course he is.
He was loyal to Maxwell, he's loyal to Blair.
That's right.
I didn't say he had taste, I said he's loyal.
It is a literary question. You were sort of in the right area initially.
Is Mystic Meg a novelist?
She has written a novel.
What is it?
It's like a long book with loads of words. And then you turn the page and then there's another load of words, and it's all made up out of your own head.
It is that all of them, except Agatha Christie, have written pornographic literature. Surprised you didn't get that, Melvin.
You're not saying that
You're not saying.
the bank manager bonks the 16-year-old was pornographic?
No. First she was 18.
Right,
And we don't call it bonking in my novel.
right. Was it a bonk manager then?
Yes.
Was it published in hardback?
Yes.
Because some of those are quite difficult to hold up with one hand.
Yeah, OK. Well, Melvin Bragg won the Literary Review's Bad Sex Prize, as far as I'm aware. He was nominated twice, once for this extract from his novel Crystal Rooms. She came to a climax feasting on him, greedily kissing, tearing at him, until the piercing moment when she shuddered on and he turned her pushed in deep as she lay face down, fists clenching and unclenching, as Mark drove in.
Into the garage.
Agatha Christie, of course, is the odd one out, as she never wrote any pornography, apart from the scene where Miss Marple lay face down, fist clenching and unclenching as the Major drove in. Tony Blair's press secretary, Alistair Campbell, used to write pornography for Forum magazine, and Mystic Meg wrote steamy stories for Men Only magazine, although Mystic Meg is obviously a pseudonym, her real name being Mystic Doris. All of which, rumpy pumpy, brings us bouncing to the end of this odd round, and the latest news is that, well, Paul and Mike are playing dead with 8, whilst Ian and Melvin are alive and kicking with 9. Which only leaves us time to scoot through a few missing words. Our guest publication this week being the magazine you just can't put down, or indeed pick up, Concrete. The Concrete magazine for the construction industry. Anyway, away we go with gin drinking turns donkeys into what?
Highly desirable beings.
Into really unpleasant kind of guys.
Well, that's not far off. Very poor mixers is how it puts it. Next, it's true. Next, it's German what day?
Concrete.
Oddly enough, it is the right answer. It's April the 28th, if you want to put it in your diary. In Hamburg. Next, supermarkets thrust bananas into what?
Lady, but she is still a dissatisfied customer.
Not verbatim what I've got here.
Very surprised man, tiny shoelaces.
It's a lovely image.
High Street Fruit War. High Street Fruit War.
You don't need to say it twice, I can hear you. The front line of price war is correct. Next, hot and cold weather affect plastic what?
Paulie Yates.
I'm not allowed to say those words, Neary, and...
No.
Plastic concrete.
Is the right answer. And finally, I thought what?
I thought I saw a pussycat creeping up on me. I did. I saw a pussycat creeping up on me.
I'm afraid your answer does actually make more sense than the right one, which is, I thought Lenny loud and revolting only was shocked by some of gentle he was. The story of the real Lenny Henry as reported in the Daily Mail on Wednesday, presumably after a particularly good lunch at the typesetters. Which faultless impersonation of headless chickens brings us to the final throws of this week's bout, and the outcome is that Paul and Mike are this week's mashed turnips with 8, whilst Ian and Melvin are this week's magic mushrooms with 13. So, to our winners, the chance to turn on the Oxford Street Christmas lights. To our losers, the job of getting them out of the attic and trying to find which bulb has blown. Sadly, there's just time to wrap up our caption competition. So, what do you think of this?
Don't worry, Mr. Parker Bowles, I'm doing this operation. Have you heard the joke about the new Disney film that's got Will Carling in it? It's called Poke Your Highness. I am sorry. I'm really sorry.
And I'm called pornographic.
And I leave you with news that in Yeovil, the Liberal Democrats' policy advisors go out for a quick bike ride. After the man at number 35 Acacia Gardens fails to return the man at number 36's lawnmower, local police fear an escalation. And after Keith Richards complains that his left nostril is blocked, a team of specially trained experts go in. Good night.
The same devastating team, the same dynamic format, the same predictable book. Have I Got News for You? Available now.